turn my mic on. Let's do this. I will call this meeting to order. And could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Billy, second.
I'll second.
Second by Jim. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will use this agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 19th?
A motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Sherry.
I'll second.
Krista, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. New business, Carver Oaks final plat. Erin will present.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
So we have two items on our agenda tonight, Carver Oaks final plat, and then a thrilling conversation about cannabis zoning. So starting off with Carver Oaks final plat, you've seen this project really recently. This might feel a little bit like deja vu, but they are back for their final plat application, which is the last step in the planning process. So we do not anticipate the Planning Commission will see this project again. So again, final plat, final step of the planning process for the Planning Commission. Location-wise, we are just south of Carver Station along Jonathan Carver Parkway. This property is home to Carver Crossing and Carver Place, which you probably all have seen is very actively under construction these days. And then the final site is for Carver Oaks. So it's the third and final building on the CDA site. It's 43 units of senior-specific multifamily housing, has 43 parking stalls underground, 15 surface. CDA has owned the property for a really long time. We started approvals for this project in 2015. Rezoning was not required for this project. It's zoned R2 PRD, so the project meets the approved PRD. The Planning Commission and City Council recently reviewed and approved Carver Place, which is under construction. And then the Planning Commission most recently reviewed preliminary plat at your September 2024 meeting. Some additional details, Carver Oaks sits on 1.43 acres of land. The building is about 61,000 square feet. There's 32 one-bedroom units, 11 two-bedroom. There's community spaces, so a craft room, library, gym, community room, lobby, and mailroom, and offices for the CDA staff. General layout of the site. The final plat document, so this is the formal final plat that gets recorded with the county. It's the legal document that shares how the site lays out, what it looks like, easements, etc. General layout of the building. Okay, so Sherry emailed me with some questions about the landscaping plan, which got a little bit tricky between the two. So at the September 19th meeting, we had the public hearing, and there were some members from Oak Tree that came in talking about the garage entrance for Carver Oaks and the impact of them in Oak Tree, so the people south. So the picture on the left is the Carver Oaks landscape plan. The picture on the right is the Carver Place landscape plan. So the plantings are going to go in on the Carver Place property. That's why it's included on the Carver Place plan instead of the Carver Oaks plan. So you can see that circled. There are 8 lilac bushes that are proposed to be installed along that property line to create a buffer for that garage. So taking the information we got from the preliminary plat public hearing and applying it here, adding that additional buffer for people to the south in Oak Tree. Billy, I lied to you. Those are stairs. I'm very sorry.
You're totally fine.
I have to come clean. We talked about it like the next day, and I was like, oh, shoot, those are indeed stairs. So the trail system is there. There's also several ways that people can get into the trail system if they want to not go on those stairs. But the ones that are directly north of the building, unfortunately, do have stairs. Just a grade challenge that we weren't able to get it low enough that it was a flat trail. So that's my admission to all of you. General layout and look of the building. So you can see it from all 4 sides. So the rear will be along Hartwell Drive. The picture on the top will face JCP. And then the 2 sides, the one with the garage, obviously faces south towards Oak Tree. And a general layout of the building. That felt really brief because we just looked at this in September. I feel like we went over a lot of those details. So I kept it short and sweet for all of you. The development team is here. If you have questions, I will open it up to you.
Anybody have any questions? Need further information? In which case, if not, I would ask for a motion to approve the final plat for Carver Place.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Krista. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sherry. And then any further discussion?
I just wanted to say thank you for listening to the resident concerns about the lighting and the experience of cars coming in and out of that garage. So thank you for listening and making changes to Carver Place. That will go a long way.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everything.
When are you going to be back again?
When they get some more property in Carver.
So this project will go to city council on December 2nd, but after that, you tell me, what's your next project? Nothing for a little bit?
Well, we're still trying to get, Trails Edge Senior Development Laconia, so probably that will be our focus for them.
Eric, did you have something?
Yeah, just a new guy question. Since it may not look far back at the previous meetings, was there ever a discussion on funding different sources that go into this project in past meetings?
No.
Allison, do you want to come up and talk a little bit about it? And pull a chair. I don't know what happened to those.
I think it's in the letter, right?
Yes.
On
It's in the
page-
letter.
okay.
I just had particular line items, questions about each one of them.
So Carver Oaks is a 4% low-income housing tax credit deal, so we'll have a tax credit investor, which is R4 Capital. It'll have a small first mortgage from Minnesota Housing. It has $1 million from the county, what was originally ARPA money, but they have since repurposed it, so it's just a fund that they call the Carver County CDA Project Fund. And then it has housing infrastructure bonds, which are state appropriated funding. I think that's everything on this project. Oh, and it has some LHIA funding, local housing incentive. I always forget what the A stands for, funding from the Met Council.
Okay.
So the first question I have is with the Housing First mortgage, Housing First being a trade organization, is my understanding.
With the what?
The Minnesota Housing First.
No, it's a Minnesota Housing Mortgage. It's not Housing First, just Minnesota Housing Finance Agency.
The letter says Housing First.
Yeah, no, Minnesota Housing Finance Agency.
So it's not the trade.
It is not the
organization.
trade organization, no.
Okay, so that's.
Two different separate entities.
Okay. And so with the Minnesota Housing Mortgage, I assume that's a state organization?
Correct. They're
The lender?
they are the
the
s-
CDA?
They are the lender, yep, they are the state housing finance agency.
Okay. So state basically is a mortgagee or mortgager to the mortgagee of the CDA. Okay. With the tax credit syndication proceeds of what, 4.6 million, is that a state tax refund?
No, so low-income housing tax credits, that's a federal program through the IRS. And so when you get any kind of tax credits, whether it be 4% or 9%, for 9% is better, but we'll take what we can get. When you get awarded an allocation of tax credits, so it is the RFP, the process is you get awarded them through the State Housing Finance Agency, but then you have to go out and find a syndicator, so somebody who's willing to put their tax credits, like put their money into the deal, and they get to write off stuff on their taxes. So like Trails Edge South, our first deal, that equity investor was Wells Fargo. Carver Place and Carver Oaks are both R4 Capital. US Bank does tax credit deals. There's just a variety of investors who do tax credit deals. But that's an IRS program. It's a federal program.
Okay. With the CDA sponsor loan, the 1 million, so the CDA is sponsoring the building, doing the project essentially.
Well,
And
so
then
this.
CDA alone, so they're loaning themselves money?
No, the sponsor, so the CDA, the owner of this project will be a limited partnership.
Okay.
And the limited partnership, 99% ownership, 99.99% ownership will be our equity investor, R4. And then there'll be a GP, a general partner, which is a limited liability company. They'll have 0.01% ownership. The CDA will be the sole member of that LLC. So that loan that's coming in from the CDA, that's the $1 million from the county. The CDA is putting it, they just call it a sponsor loan. We're putting that $1 million as a loan into the project from the CDA. I don't know why they call it a sponsor loan.
Okay. So essentially the CDA loaning to R4 then?
We're loaning it to the LP, to the project.
Okay. The housing infrastructure appropriations, is that a state appropriation?
It is state, so housing infrastructure bonds. That's a state program that's been around for less than 10 years. Minnesota is very unique that we have housing infrastructure bonds. They have very specific carve-outs on what you can use housing infrastructure bonds for. One of those is senior housing. Housing infrastructure bonds need a supermajority. We're trying to clarify how much of ours are bonds versus housing infrastructure appropriations, which are cash and do not need a supermajority. So I think we have a combination of bonds and appropriations, but they still have to meet those specific carve-outs, of which senior housing is one of them.
Okay,
And then the last question, the LHIA, the local housing,
Incentives account.
there you go.
Uh-huh.
Is that a grant or a loan? I know it's coming from
You,
the council.
it comes from the Met Council. You can structure it as a grant or a loan. We will be structuring it as a loan into the project.
that's all you got? Okay, we have a motion and a second on on the floor. Anybody else have any other questions, concerns? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you, Allison. You too. Okay. Let's see. I guess we're down to 4.2, cannabis zoning discussion.
Just a sec, Erin's gonna leave too.
What?
Erin's gonna leave too.
What? 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 How do you know?
It could be. You could make it.
All right, Erin.
Bye. All right, you ready?
Sure, let's go.
Okay. Alrighty, so the cannabis zoning discussion has been happening at the council level for a couple of meetings now. So we had a listening session on October 21st where we put this slide out. So we posted this on social media. We also sent it to business owners, people in the community that we thought would have an interest in it, posted it on our city website, did a newsflash, et cetera. So we invited anyone and everyone to come into our listening session on October 21st. Then at the November 18th work session, the city council discussed the listening session. So they made some progress on the direction we're heading with the cannabis zoning discussion. Tonight, November 21st, Planning Commission review on the listening session and council feedback. So we're not looking for action tonight, we're just discussing. Next up for you will be an additional review on December 12th. The Planning Commission will hold the public hearing at that meeting. The meeting needed to be moved up 1 week because this ordinance needs to be in place before the first of the year. And the city council meetings fall outside of our usual Planning Commission meeting on that third Thursday of the month. So we're bumping the Planning Commission up 1 week, which is actually probably pretty nice for the holidays, get us in and out earlier in the month. So a little bit of past discussions that we've had at the city council level. So what we're doing is that the city is tasked with drafting and adopting language related to cannabis dispensaries and where they can be located. So this is a zoning topic. That's why the Planning Commission is reviewing it. It's likely to reside in the zoning code as a permitted use and then any additional information that we add. Like any other use that we've talked about, it needs to be permitted somewhere in the community. So we can think about it as all different kinds of uses. So is it commercial, industrial, et cetera? We'll talk about that tonight. Based on our population, Carver is anticipated to have 1 licensed dispensary. So cities with a population under 12,000 will be getting 1 license, and that license will be run by the Office of Cannabis Management from the state. So we will not do the licensing, but we are able to create the zoning district to say where that 1 licensed dispensary can be. So we've gotten some feedback, which has been really fantastic. The city holds a Carver Business Alliance every month, so we invite all business owners to come in and meet with us for like a city roundtable on the 3rd Friday of every month from 11 until noon. We get really good attendance. It's been really fun to meet and get to know a lot of business owners. So we see a lot of people from downtown that come in, some people from new businesses, which has been really great. So we talked about it at our October 18th meeting. We had 3 business owners provide feedback. One was a downtown property owner, and then the Southwest Chamber always attends, so they gave us some feedback too, since they're talking about this across Carver County. In general, consensus was that dispensaries are comparable to bars or liquor stores. So they're wasn't an issue from downtown business owners about having a dispensary near their businesses. One of them was River Wild Childcare, so the daycare that's across the street run by Jessica Kruger. So she was one of the 3 business owners. I was at that Business Alliance meeting. We were able to chat through a lot of the details. Something of note that we talked a lot there is that smoking in public is not permitted. So people are not permitted to smoke on city sidewalks and city parks. So you'd be able to sell at the dispensary, but you wouldn't be able to have like an outdoor smoking area. So it'll be self-contained indoors. People will go purchase a product, likely leave their premise shortly after. Then at the October 21st City Council meeting, we heard from staff at Carver Elementary. Again, Jessica Kruger from River Wild Learning Center was there, and Nate Royce from the Getaway Motor Cafe. We additionally heard from OTB Kids, which is the daycare in Carver Square near Mizzy's Pizza, and they sent an email earlier this week asking to have a 1,000-foot buffer from their business to any dispensaries. I'm going to dovetail that in. So many communities are considering creating distance buffers in dispensaries that the buffer must be from certain users. So the city attorney said on Monday that his office is doing this for many communities across the state, and it doesn't feel like there is one direction that anyone is going. It feels like most communities are taking this on a city-by-city basis to figure out what works for their community. So a lot of communities are thinking about daycares, parks, residential treatment facilities, schools. So that's listed in state statute as uses that can be buffered. It's up to the city, the planning commission, and the city council has the discretion to decide which uses are buffered and how far. There are also draft buffers in state statute, so it's 1,000 feet from a school and then 500 feet from a daycare, residential treatment facility, or public park. So that's what state statute has as a recommendation for the buffers. We talked at city council. What would it look like if we said 1,200, and our city attorney advised above going above these buffers on any of these users? So the 1,000 feet is specifically for schools, 500 feet is for daycares, residential treatment facilities, and public parks.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yeah.
Hypothetically, if we adopted this 500 feet from a public park, no place downtown really
Right.
could have,
So council talked about that too.
and a school and a daycare.
Correct. So I don't know why that keeps going off. Okay, so let's jump to what the council's feedback was to start shaping the conversation for you. So their feedback was to permit dispensaries in the central business district, so downtown, without buffers. So that would not create a buffer for River Wild Learning Center as a daycare. It would not create a buffer for Gazebo Park. So the central business district would not have buffers. So since the business owners downtown, River Wild Learning Center, felt that it was similar to bars and liquor stores, I believe the council felt comfortable with that same direction, saying that in general, a central business district feels different than some of the commercial nodes that we have in other places. You're more likely to have establishments that serve alcohol downtown. So thinking about it as more of a commercial user. The city council did discuss 500-foot buffers in other commercial districts. So none in the central business district. The freeway commercial district, they landed on a 500-foot buffer from daycares in those zoning districts. So that would include Carver Commons, where Children of Tomorrow is, and Carver Square, where O2B Kids is. So creating the 2 buffers for those 2 daycares in the freeway commercial district. And then they proposed a buffer of 1,000 feet from the public institutional zone property, which is Carver Elementary. We also talked a lot about, is it measured from the building or the property line? We went with property line because kids on a school property are outdoors on the entire property. They're not just in the building. So again, the city council's feedback and direction from Monday night's meeting was to not have buffers in the central business district, have a 1,000-foot buffer from a school, so Carver Elementary for us, and then in the freeway commercial district, have a 500-foot buffer from daycare specifically, so Children of Tomorrow and O2B Kids. The city council did not give us feedback that they wanted to move forward with buffers for parks, residential treatment facilities. Is there one more? No, I think that's it.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
it would be from schools and daycares and freeway commercial. So that's where the council sat from their feedback on Monday, so looking for feedback from this group as well.
I have 2 questions. The first is, why
just for my knowledge, why can't we be different than the buffers that we're seeing in other areas? Like, aren't we allowed to have freedom over our own zoning laws?
So we can go lower, but state statute, their model ordinance at 1,500 feet. We could. I would suspect that we would maybe be entering into territory of a lawsuit at that point, since we'd be going above and beyond state statute.
Got it, so state trumps city and then.
Right.
Okay. My other question is, if we do something different for downtown than we do in other districts, isn't that also setting us up to be challenged? Because like, if we can be near daycares downtown, but we can't be near daycares in other areas of the city. like,
So
I don't,
daycares can exist in the commercial zoning district, freeway commercial district. So depending on where a daycare is located, it can be permitted in different zoning districts. So I would say, in general, we just would not have buffers in downtown. So we're not going to have a buffer for gazebo park. We're not going to have a buffer for daycares. So I see where you're coming from, that it's like feels daycare specific, because that was a lot of the feedback we got.
well, it feels like there's room to be challenged because we're saying it's for daycares, but then there's daycares down here, so it feels like it would be loose. It'd be easy to challenge in
Yeah.
a lawsuit.
I can say that the city attorney felt comfortable with this approach.
Okay. Are there any buffers on bars and liquor stores?
There are not, no.
Yet, we often seem to compare to them. Yet they don't have
Correct.
any buffer.
Yep, but we're not tasked with that tonight, fortunately.
Well, and it's kind of interesting because the product you will buy at a dispensary, you cannot use inside the dispensary or outside the
Right.
dispensary in public. So it's kind of interesting, in a bar, you get to go in, drink, come back out,
Yeah.
or you can buy off sale and come back out, so.
I do think this is going to evolve. It's really interesting to be in these seats right now when we're drafting the first zoning ordinance for this, when I think we might change it, and we might need to, we might want to, but it's a pivotal time for cannabis to be talking about it, because it's our first shot at it and something we have to do where liquor has been much more accessible for much longer.
I think-
Can you get things you can eat at the dispensary?
That's my question. What's the definition of dispensary here?
I would say yes.
Well, I did read the law.
Great,
There are like 16 different licenses.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't count them, Eric.
Yeah, but
There are a lot.
isn't defined in state statute either.
No.
Yeah, exactly, so.
I got blocked on my computer today for trying to search these.
you were.
Was that your buffer?
I do think because it's so new though, like I get what you guys are saying, but I do think there are a lot of parents that would be looking at daycares that would automatically not choose a daycare if there was a dispensary by it, so it could hurt their business versus liquor stores have been around a lot longer, so like there's whether or not it will impact their business. I don't know that I would send my kids to a daycare right by a dispensary because I just don't know enough about how people act. I have enough experience with how people leave liquor stores, but I have no idea you know what I mean? Like, it just feels like I don't want my kids to be the test kids for being the daycare next to a dispensary. So I get why daycares wouldn't want to be right next
Okay.
to a dispensary. Like, I think there is a business component to it.
I would not have a problem sending my kids
Right.
to daycare.
Yeah, but I think there are enough parents that
Yeah.
would,
At
that
a
it would,
dispensary.
it would cause an issue.
Yeah, it's true. It's probably true.
So when you say one dispensary
Mm-hmm.
per city,
No, per 12,000
okay,
people.
but City of Carver will get one.
Correct.
You can go to a brewery and get THC liquid beverage. Does that count?
No.
Why? So they're still gonna be allowed to sell it. What's the difference between just being able to sell it and being a dispensary? Like, is a dispensary only selling certain things?
There is some law that allows them to sell THC beverages now. That law will change in 2025 to allow different products to be sold.
And I think the dispensaries are allowed to sell higher octane THC than,
Okay.
And cannabis, like, that's the component, it's THC or cannabis.
Yeah,
Right.
CBD.
Versus the
Yes.
CBD.
Correct, yes.
And then does it matter if you're like renting a building? So
Mm.
do renters come in and get a permit for things?
So you'd have to be licensed by the state, and then when a business turns over, we do a change of use permit.
Okay.
So at that point, they have to apply for a SAC determination. They go through a permitting process with us too. So businesses don't turn over without us knowing, and if they do, we usually can pump the brakes and say, there's a couple steps you have to do before you can open.
Okay. And then my last question is, there was no talk of parks, but I'm assuming there's park rules.
Correct.
Like, do they say no drugs or alcohol, or?
Yes, you cannot drink in public parks right now, or smoke.
Have you been to a baseball game?
I will say the Carver Black Sox, they do have a liquor license.
Okay.
So if you have a liquor license, you can, but in general, in city
Or if it's
parks.
Steamboat Days, then.
Steamboat Days, all rules are off.
Yeah.
We'll have 1,200 dispensaries that weekend.
Okay.
Well,
And is there a sign in the park that says that?
I think so. Like, I know Ironwood Park does for sure.
Okay.
says, what does it say?
I think no alcohol and no smoking.
Oh, it doesn't say drugs.
Smoking of what kind?
Okay, these are such specific questions.
I've had a lot of time to think about this. so.
Yeah.
We can absolutely, if we have park signs that are up, we can absolutely include mind-altering substances.
Hey, Erin, do
Yeah.
you be able to get the slides with the buffers? Just maybe that'd help.
Sure.
Yeah, so at the city council, we had the block.
We have a problem, we can't have it anywhere.
Here's the buffer.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, okay.
Erin, I think you need a new cord.
Yeah.
took it off. I don't want you to watch me click right now.
Oh,
So I could have looked this up, but I didn't. I just thought of it. So we can have one because we're under 12,000. But once we grow, like in our plan, how many do we get then?
It'll depend on our population.
We can do more.
Yeah.
So it's one minimum per 12,500.
Per 12,000. Okay.
Yeah, that,
500 dispensaries, that's up to the city. I mean, it's-
Yeah.
yeah,
Using hyperbole in this situation, but it's one minimum.
yeah, this.
Oh,
is
I
a-
understand.
Yeah,
So we
it's a-
can give more, we just can't give less.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the state law says that you have to allow one for every 12,500. So
Okay.
Chaska's 25,000, right? So they have to allow at least two. Like you said, they
Okay.
could have more, right? Yeah.
Okay, so,
It's gone.
okay, so on the left, it would be 1,000 feet from Carver Elementary, any property line. And then on the right is 500 feet from Children of Tomorrow. All of these daycare names. So that's what the proposed buffers would look like for the school, and then Children of Tomorrow, which is in the Freeway Commercial District.
Oh, isn't that next steps?
It's O2.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Next.
yeah.
No, that one is Next Steps.
Yeah, sorry. And then OTP. Yeah. Think right? Yes. There you go.
And then on the left is O2B Kids, formerly Children of Tomorrow, with a 500-foot buffer. And then on the right is River Wild Learning Center with a 500-foot buffer.
So it's just daycare centers, not daycares.
residential.
Correct.
Residential.
So we had that discussion at the council level too. Dispensary would not be permitted in a residential district where in-home daycare centers are.
Yep.
Because the ones that are at your house normally aren't legal anyway.
Some are.
No, not the daycares.
Oh, a dispensary?
Yeah, the selling of things at your house.
Is there a reason that parks and residential treatment facilities was left out?
So we don't know where residential treatment facilities usually are. So it's a program run by the county, and they're typically allowed in residential districts, so it's not something we typically know about. And parks, the council felt like if we buffered parks, we would wipe out our community entirely.
Do you have a map if you overlay on the highway commercial where that would actually be allowed?
So Carver Commons, which is on the map now with Next Steps.
So
I'd
that would
say
be out.
Out.
Okay,
Carver Square is zoned freeway commercial, which is where O2B Kids and Mizzy's Pizza is. That would be out. The other freeway commercial property right now is Fleet Farm. But since it's not a daycare, it wouldn't have a buffer.
but if a daycare went in before a dispensary, that would knock that out too.
Correct.
So then where do you put it?
Downtown, in
Okay.
an industrial district.
Well, downtown without buffers.
Correct.
Okay,
And if a dispensary moves into an area that they're allowed to be in, and then daycare decides it wants to be there?
Dispensary stays,
Okay,
childcare will decide.
okay. Any other questions, concerns?
Well,
Just a
my
minute.
question is,
Come on.
Yeah.
Closer.
my question is, in general, we don't seem to, I haven't heard much argument that says the dispensary is worse than a bar or a liquor store. And I guess I would say a bar rather than a liquor store. But we don't have any restrictions on that.
Right. And Jessica Kruger shared some of that same sentiment at River Wild, just saying that she sees some pretty wild stuff happen downtown during pickup sometimes, just with people coming out of a bar. So she felt more comfortable with a dispensary than some of the things they probably already see downtown.
Are we considering putting buffers on bars and liquor stores?
No.
Eric, did you have something?
Yeah, I got a whole laundry list of things.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Well, first of all, I'll just put this on the record. Cannabis is illegal federally. The state is violating federal law, and we're evading the violation of federal law by discussing this and clarifying it. So my position on this is irrelevant, but I'm just stating that out there. We are discussing violating federal law with this. Some academic, or not academic, but bookkeeping stuff, dispensaries isn't really used at all in the state statute. I only saw one reference to this dispensary that were so for clarity, retail locations is gonna help clarify the issue a little bit when we're talking about this. And that's important because, as Cindy pointed out, there's 13 different licenses for 13 different types of businesses. We're talking meso business, we're talking micro business, we're talking distribution, we're talking growing, transportation, all this other, I forget the exact laundry list of this. So when we get into the part where we're zoning this out, we're gonna have to break into the different types of business. We can't just use a one definition fits all, because this issue is much more than just a retail location. With the buffers, the retail location applies, but do we want to grow, or this is again hyperbole again, do we want to grow our downtown Minneapolis, or not, excuse me, downtown Carver versus, a boutique retailer selling edibles or whatnot. So there's all discussions we think about.
Eric, I'm going to stop you. Those aren't discussions we're going to have at this level.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like that's our purview, and
But asking
we are
for
being
zoning.
tasked by the state.
Yeah, so if you want me to connect you with the city attorney to talk through some of this, but this is what we're being tasked with doing.
Sure.
So we're going to use the draft ordinance by the state. We're not going to define 13 different business uses. That's not in our scope of work.
But the business types, we got retail, we got wholesale, we got transportation. We got
Yeah, I appreciate your,
tie into commercial districts versus industrial districts.
yeah, I appreciate your commitment to this, but this is not the forum for it.
Okay.
Do you have other questions?
I sure do, yes. So I'd like to get some clarity on the residential treatment facility definition. State statute doesn't define it. We may have to take on that task of clarifying it in lack of absence of a state definition. It refers to, this statute is referred to residential treatment facilities, mostly as far as psychiatric care for children. But there are some tenuous references to basically sober living, transitional housing, whatever definition you want to throw in here. So this, not that anything's happened here, but just things to think about in the future when we start actually writing, or not drafting different zoning ordinances to go with this. How does that definition of residential flesh out so we can apply it as we see fit with this board here.
In relationship to cannabis?
Yeah, what
ordinance?
exactly is a residential treatment
Well,
facility? If we're gonna go with if we go with the zoning. or,
Well, residential
setback.
means it's gonna be in a residential area, so, you know,
And I'll also say if we're not planning to buffer it, I don't think we need
no.
an extended
Define it.
definition for it.
Okay, well, we might jump in the shark a little bit by learning how to buffer. At this moment, we have.
You can share that feedback. It was the council's direction at this point.
Okay. Other stuff. Let's do that for a later time there.
This is probably your time.
Yeah, I'm just going through my plethora of notes here. And I'll table it for now.
I'm sorry?
I'll table
Okay,
the
jump in
discussion
if
for
you,
now.
if you have something else. Anybody else?
Did Sherry have anything?
Yeah, I just have a couple, I just have a question on how the county, so in the work session that the council had, they referenced what the county was doing, because they're under these same timelines.
Right.
So when the county is defining their rules, they're defining for the rural areas, which are townships, right?
Correct.
And then we're defining for within the city limits.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure. So just for clarity, guys, the county, in their.
I did watch that meeting.
The county in their draft document is doing, this is rural now, so think East Union, okay? There should not be retail within 1,000 feet of the nearest property line of a parcel containing a school, church, daycare, residential treatment facility, or an attraction within a public park that is regularly used by minors, including a playground or an athletic field. So that's what's in their document. I just wanted to share that as a point of reference.
Do we know if the city council, if that was shared with the city council?
I think their meeting was after.
It was.
Ours.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
theirs was Tuesday, ours was Monday.
Yep.
That's right, theirs was
Yep.
Tuesday the 19th.
Okay.
So that's out there for us. I just wanted
Yeah.
to bring it.
Okay,
As a point of reference. And then just, I wanted to understand how the county and the city stuff plays together. But I'm also curious, so two questions. Within this zoning, do we have the ability to define hours of operation? Or does that come at a later point in time?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
So I think that's one thing we would want to consider. I don't, bars can be open till, what is it?
2.
I'm in bed by 9. But I don't think we'd want a dispensary open till 2, so I think that there's hours of operation considerations we should, if we can. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if we can either, but I can ask the city attorney.
And then if we do list it as an approved use, does that mean then in all the other zones, we have,
Yes, it is not.
Not permitted.
okay, okay.
And you can't do a
A CUP.
yeah,
yeah.
can I do this kind of note?
No.
Conditional?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sherry, in relation, or related to your question about the timing, the OCM in state statute 342 says we can prohibit retail sales during certain hours. Hours are kind of wonky in my opinion. I'm just reading this off the OCM flyer here. Local governments may prohibit retail sales of cannabis between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Monday through Saturday. So can't sell during breakfast times. And then between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. the following morning. So I guess
so they can't open before 10
Yeah.
and have to close by 9.
But you can go buy your weed at 2:30 in the morning if you want to.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just something to consider.
But that's the guidance, but it's wide open.
Yeah.
It's may prohibit, so
Yeah.
whatever you want to do.
And then just so that I'm clear, I pulled out this map. It's my cheat sheet. So the red sections are what you're referencing freeway. Is
Correct.
that right? Okay. So there's also the parcel that's, oh no, that's in the township, so never mind.
Yeah.
You knew where I was going with
Yeah.
that. Okay, so I did hear Jessica Kruger in 2 different situations state that she's comfortable with a central business district. So if we have her aligned with that, and then to your point, we put this ordinance in place or this zoning rule in place, if a daycare comes later and there happens, you know, it's their choice if they want to open within the buffer or not.
Mhm.
And aren't we not supposed to make rules according to what's currently there?
Correct. And if I were to look in a crystal ball, which I don't have, I suspect Strains will probably go for the dispensary license, Strains of the Earth, which is our neighbor. So I think it's been helpful downtown to get to know the people of that business too, that most people downtown are feeling pretty comfortable with that group and that they've been good neighbors to us, so.
You should really come in and educate us.
Does anybody else have any comments or suggestions or concerns?
Field trip.
Field trip.
Let's go.
Not legal till January.
I think the hours of operation is a really good point, though.
Yeah, maybe we can.
I like that a lot.
Is that what we're tasked with, though? Or is it just putting a buffer on if needed?
So the biggest discussion is the buffers. I suspect we can do hours of operation in our specific ordinance. The city attorney has been drafting it, so I'll share that feedback with him.
How long is this going to be? Is it going to be like the zoning that we looked at that was like 800 pages
No.
long?
4 to 5.
Okay.
4 to 500 or?
No, 4 to 5
With
pages.
pictures?
No.
Oh, okay.
If Strains comes in, maybe they would, but
Examples?
no.
Oh, I think,
Yeah, come up.
Okay, yep, absolutely. My name is Chad. I live here in Carver. What's to stop a company seeking a license from, say, purchasing a piece of property where a daycare resides? So like Jessica Kruger leases that building. Strange is making a lot of money in Jordan and in Carver. Who's to say they don't, as opposed to adhering to the buffer, buy River Wild? How do you prevent that, if you can?
No. There won't be a buffer in the central business.
Well, so just as an example, let's just say hypothetically
Okay.
speaking, if you put a buffer in downtown, right? So you impose a buffer, Strange doesn't
Well,
like
let's
it.
say we do it on the freeway commercial
Sure,
district.
right.
Because that's where we're thinking about it.
So somebody elects to, okay, again, this is purely hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's just say next steps, right, is a leased facility. Strains, there's a 500 or 1,000 foot buffer imposed upon that geography. Who's to say that Strains wouldn't be able to effectively purchase next steps and alleviate the buffer?
It would no longer be a daycare, so it wouldn't need a buffer.
So you would, so it effectively, so that's what I mean is, let's just say, again, if this body were to try to impose a buffer downtown and Strange just says, well, the hell with the buffer, I'm just gonna buy the building and get rid of the daycare. I can't imagine, I mean, these are things like
Yeah.
contingencies that you can't really prepare for, but just something to put on the table. Is there a way in which you could, if you have to impose a buffer, how do you protect those daycares from, call it hostile takeover, more or less?
It wouldn't
is
be,
it
a-
hostile if they sell to the
Okay,
dispensary?
so don't call it a hostile takeover.
But do you know what I mean? Like, if they buy it and the buffer doesn't qualify anymore, then there's not a problem, right?
right.
Right, all I'm saying is if you have an established daycare facility and there's a buffer imposed, as opposed to having a dispensary move outside of the buffer, they just financially alleviate the buffer.
Sure.
Then that feels like natural course of business.
100%, 100%.
I don't know,
I mean,
yeah.
it's just, that's, so I think about Jessica, and once again, this goes back to the hypothetical that if you were to impose a buffer downtown. Strange is making a lot of money. They can kind of, throw a bunch of capital around and alleviate the buffer by purchasing a daycare facility if they were to have the opportunity to do so.
They could if they wanted to.
But natural course of business, I won't disagree with you.
But they
Yeah.
could also buy the ice cream store and keep it open year round then.
It's probably in their best interest to do so, especially downtown.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyways, just a question I wanted to
No,
pose.
it's
All
great.
right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Chad. Okay, what are you looking for from us?
So general consensus with the council's feedback? Do you have strong feelings otherwise?
Just distance seem.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, so the council landed
500 from a daycare.
1,000 feet
school.
from a school, so Carver
1,000
Elementary.
from a school.
500 from a daycare in a freeway commercial zoning
And
district.
no buffer in the central business district.
Correct.
I'm aligned to that.
Yeah, me too.
What does the map look like if you shrink down to 500 for the school?
So the school is interesting. We talked about this a little bit internally, that they probably don't need a buffer.
Well, they have so much land around them.
Right, and it's
They're kinda
mostly
landlocked.
residential around them, so
Well, and if you cut it, wouldn't it bump up to the next steps buffer?
It would,
anyway?
yeah.
So then it
Yeah.
is 1,000 feet anyway.
yes, the school asked us for that 1,000-foot buffer, so,
Was it 1,000 foot from the building? or-
no, from the property line.
Property line.
Property
And they
line,
have a big property already.
they do.
I like it. The school, I mean, there's only one school in Carver, so it is what it is, but the daycares, I would be concerned for their businesses if we didn't have that buffer, just as a parent that sends multiple kids to daycares. It would make me second guess, and I know a lot of my friends who it would make them second guess, so I think for their business model, it's good.
Well, and the other thing we need to keep in mind is, we're looking at one retail/dispensary store.
Right now.
Maybe two,
Yeah.
you know, in the next 20 years.
Right.
Or unless.
Laws
you know,
might change.
City council or, you know, the government here decides, hog wild, everybody, many as you want. You know, so. I mean,
Parties in Carver.
So I'm very comfortable with what,
Same.
And
Okay,
like you said, it's a starting point, so if we need to change it,
absolutely.
we can.
yeah.
yeah.
If there becomes a lot of concerns.
Yeah.
problems.
And that is the interesting thing, is typically we can look to other communities for best practices, but we're all doing it at the same time.
Right.
I would recommend looking at the hours, though, because I really
Yeah,
do think
absolutely.
that's a
Yeah,
really good
definitely.
idea.
Yep.
Isn't there technically no one in the office right now? Not in Carver's office, but like the dispensary.
Correct.
Cannibalism, cannabis.
Again?
Yeah. I had to think about that.
Cannabis.
Cannabis.
We
There,
don't have restrictions on cannabis.
I know, we talked about that last time, but there's no one in that office.
that has been why it's been tricky. We got the model ordinance really late because they didn't have staff members preparing it. So that's why we're doing this work in November and December, when we started talking about it in June, so.
Or before,
Okay, are we done speaking of cannabis? Anybody got anything else? Okay, in that case, communications. Billy, I'm gonna start with you tonight.
I don't think I have anything.
Okay, that's what I like about you.
Your readathon seemed very successful.
It was so successful. Oh, actually, right now we do have, like our student favorite is we do it's called Coyote Cafe. And every kid from Carver gets to come down and pick out a brand new book and get a cookie and coffee. And Carver is really focused on literacy. So if you have new books or if you have old books, Carver also just put a free little library in front of the building, and they can't keep books stocked because kids are
Good to
taking
know.
them. So, yeah, so bring your old books and do that. If you have new books,
You're giving the kids coffee?
yeah. I was
no,
gonna say.
sorry, hot cocoa.
Hot cocoa.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry.
Giving the kids hot cocoa.
Yes, coffee, yes.
Coffee,
right
I'm like,
to
well, you don't
their
want a
veins.
dispensary here.
Direct
if I can
hits.
have caffeine.
No, hot cocoa. So and then they get to spend some time reading their new books. And I volunteered for a few years, and a lot of kids that go to Carver, it is their first brand new book that they get to own, which is very cool to see. So I think there's 790 kids that go to Carver, so it's a lot of books that we need.
All right.
And so, yeah, just a cool thing we're doing now.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
I've got nothing.
You have nothing.
No.
Jim?
Okay, as long as we're talking about. books,
December 7th.
December 7th is the next book sale at the Chaska Library.
What?
For that.
That's not what I expected you to say for December 7th. Is that the tree lighting ceremony? Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to steal
You're
your.
pushing me.
Okay, book
Anybody
sale.
who's interested in decorating Gazebo Park, that's gonna be November 30th at noon. And then the tree lighting will be, I think it's 4 to 6. We're gonna have horse-drawn wagon rides downtown. And we will do, our beloved mayor will be lighting the Christmas tree again this year,
And what day is that?
December 7th.
Okay. As well as Carver, Santa's coming to Carver City Hall
That's right.
that day too, so.
I'm not
December
involved
7th,
with that.
very busy. Okay,
December 7th, you can bring your kids and come down.
Yeah,
okay.
to see that tree lighting.
See the big
Well,
tree.
the tree lighting and then there's a party
Yeah.
downstairs here.
Cool.
Very cool.
Okay.
I have
Eric,
nothing.
Chad, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. What about you?
Just thank you for working with the ordinance here, and just probably interesting update is the bridge in downtown. They're still working on it. They're planning to have the concrete poured and the structure up before the end of the year. Now the race is between the weather and how long they can have the asphalt, because as it gets colder, the asphalt doesn't work as well, and the asphalt plant has to spend more money. So hopefully it stays warm and we can get the last layer of asphalt down on the bridge
It's not gonna get
in
cold.
downtown, but
Oh.
yeah, likely not, but
Yeah.
we're crossing our fingers.
So next spring, huh?
Yeah, it'll be finished
And the new
in
park has
spring.
started.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Erin. Yeah, and then you want to take that one?
Sure. Creekside Park is under construction.
Yeah.
Woo! I can hear it.
Yeah. So that's all I had. Unless
Okay,
there's any other questions?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Along the trail here, is that levee work going on?
Yes.
No.
No.
What is that?
They're-
The Merriam Junction.
Oh, that's
Bridge.
Merriam
Merriam
Junction
Junction,
Trail?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it's starting.
Thank you, everyone.
Cool.
Could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Billy, second by Sherry, and they sound sad. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.